Hello to all my folks, jokes, and blokes out there. It's me. I'm re-recording a video that I just found today that I had recorded a while ago, talking about different kinds of dissociation and why I didn't know I dissociated. So I'm going to talk about dissociation. I'm going to describe some dissociation, and sometimes that can be kind of triggering for people because it can make you dissociate. So if that's something that is upsetting for you, this might be a good one to skip. Sorry if you hear my cat in the background. He's playing. He's very cute. So I didn't know I dissociated for a very long time, and I think it's because, first of all, dissociation is not something that's really talked about a lot at all. And also, my idea of what it meant to dissociate was pretty narrow. So I thought that dissociation was things like losing time, spacing out. I didn't realize that, I thought it was something that was passive and something that would just happen to you. But now I know that dissociation is something that can be active. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain a little bit about the different kinds of dissociation that I experienced that I had to learn were dissociation. So, luckily I have a friend who is very knowledgeable, book-wise and experientially, about different kinds of dissociation. I remember talking to them about some of my experiences and being like, hey, this is normal, right? And they were like, nah, buddy, that's not normal. And so that was really interesting. So generally my understanding of dissociation is that there are generally two categories of dissociation. So derealization, which is where your surroundings, there's some kind of disconnect in your perception of your surroundings, and depersonalization, which is a disconnect in your perception of yourself. So things that I do that I had to then realize, either fit into these categories or exist outside of them, is, I think the biggest one for me is how absorbed I can get in my own thoughts and how absorbed I can get in activities. So in activities that I think have like a hypnotic quality to them. For me, when I'm thinking about something or imagining something, it's like I'm transported to a different place. Like it's like I'm not here. It's like I'm not aware of my surroundings. But it's not like I'm losing time because it's such an active process that like but my brain is just somewhere else. And I didn't realize that is a disconnect with the present, but it is. For me, at least. All of this is, according to me and my experience. Also, along with that, something I experienced all throughout growing up was a lot of racing thoughts. A lot of racing thoughts. And there's also something to be said for how much of racing thoughts is other people in the system talking to me. But I think that an absorption in my thoughts, even though it was like a distressing and it was like a really distressing experience, it was taking me out of the present moment. And so I think that was also a sign that I probably missed. And also absorbing activities. So something that I really love to do, and now I only do in moderation, is listen to audiobooks. And so I would listen to audiobooks for hours and hours and hours and not really retain the information, honestly. I've listened to a lot of books, and I don't even know a lot of what a lot of them are, If you told me the name of the book, I wouldn't remember that I had read it, potentially. And so now I listen to podcasts instead because it's a little bit more engaged. But I didn't realize that this was dissociation because I'm like, oh, I'm reading. I'm sorry my cat's being so noisy. Sweetheart. Oh, how I love you. I can't tell him off, even though I want him to be quiet for my recording because he's just so sweet. I can't do it, so sorry. Yeah, I was like, this is an activity. I'm not dissociating. It's an activity. Checks the box of something I don't need to examine further. Another thing, and this is something that can, could be a little bit upsetting. Well, any of it could be upsetting, but it might be a little bit upsetting, is the experience of pretending like you don't have feelings. So, something that I used to do a lot. I don't do it anymore. I feel like maybe someone else is around. I can kind of feel it in like my voice and stuff. But something that I used to do a lot was like, if I had a feeling come up, I would be like, I refuse to accept that it's happening. But in a way that wasn't particularly effective, and I was extremely aware of the fact that it was happening, and so in my mind, this was hard for me to understand as being a form of dissociation, because I'm like, oh, if I was dissociating, surely this would work better, or like, surely I wouldn't be aware of what I was doing, right? Surely this wouldn't be a conscious process. But it is, because it is like an active distancing from your own feelings, and that is dissociation. Another thing is mistaking and confusing dissociation for other kinds of brain experiences. So we have some chronic illnesses and also have been chronically tired, not like chronic fatigue syndrome type thing, but just chronically tired our whole lives, and I think that we have in the past confused the difference between our chronic conditions that affect our perceptions and then what it feels like to, be not present, not grounded, and, experiencing dissociation. Oh yes, and then another thing, which could be a little bit upsetting, is talking about fawning responses. So, you're probably familiar with the idea of flight and fight. You might be familiar with the idea of fight, flight, or fawn. So, if there is a situation in which you're feeling threatened, there's the idea is that there's an instinctual response to either fight, flee, and then there's also people talk about freezing. I know people talk about freezing or fawning. And so I want to talk to you about fawning. So fawning is where you're faced with a situation where you're feeling threatened, and your response is to try and manage it. To like pretend like everything's okay, or to like I'm probably not doing a great job of describing this, but to kind of make nice in the situation. I'm sure there's another way to describe it that would be better, but hopefully you understand what I mean. But, so, in a situation of feeling threatened, response is to try to make everything be okay. In a way that I think there is an inherent disconnection between the threat that someone is feeling and then the way that they're expressing it, and so that's something that we've experienced our whole lives, and I think that was also a sign that we were dissociating, but wouldn't have known. Yeah, we didn't think that we could be a system originally when we were first noticing that something was going on, because we were like, we don't dissociate, we don't lose time, and we don't lose time, I don't think. Yeah, we don't black out, we don't have these kinds of big amnesia, kind of classic ways of thinking about amnesia and dissociation, and I really wish that we had a little bit more information about what it meant to dissociate, because I think it would have helped us understand ourselves better, maybe found more resources. I mean, it would have been pretty cool if we had found out we were a system earlier. That could have kicked ass, honestly. But oh well, we're happy, mostly, the way that we are now, so it's okay. But yeah, and so we wanted to make this video, maybe I should have started off with this, but we wanted to make this video because, if you are trying to figure out yourself or yourselves, trying to figure out what it means for you to be present or not present, maybe hearing about some of these things is interesting or helpful in some way. Maybe you know someone who's interesting and helpful in some way. Maybe you're just a little freak and you love to learn about the way that other people's minds work, in which case I'm super happy to provide that. Whenever I say little freak, I mean it in the most endearing way, just to be clear. I'm a little freak too. You can hear my little freak in the background, can you? No, now he's being quiet. Speaking of which, I'm gonna go grab him to finish off this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. It definitely went on a little bit longer than I meant it to. I hope that it was helpful, interesting. If you have a different experience or you disagree in some way, that is 100% okay. I'm only ever able to speak from my experience, and I'm only ever giving my experience as a way to be helpful. So if it's not helpful, that's okay. Okay. Say bye. Bye. Bye-bye.